Hello. Hello, everyone. Good day. This is Aldwin, aka Q, current ARA board member and captain of Chicago area Mahjong. Um, the board to the assembly, thank you for your time for looking into the initial presentation for the national championship tournament. And as a reminder, for now we have no plan set in stone. This is just an initial proposal. Basically asking, should we even do this? But for now, let's give ourselves a little bit of more time just to get everyone situated, and we will get started. And as a reminder, with this presentation here on Twitch, the VOD will be available for 1 week, and I will take the time to download this video and then upload it to YouTube so that this presentation can be reviewed at your convenience, and likewise the slides, the presentation itself will also be available. So let's get ourselves started, shall we? So as we can see, the national championship tournament um will be slated for 2026, and let's go over with the background or some general points to cover. So we will go over some of the background that was kind of working behind the scenes on this project. Um, we'll We'll talk about the current existing national level events and then the purpose of this national tournament. Why should we have it at all? And maybe some criterion design principles. Look to the future, maybe, and then finally, the motion to the assembly will be placed. By which I will look to make make a document and submit that. So, anyways, the background to this. Back in 2022, about 1 month after the World Reaching Championship for that year, I actually took some time speculating over qualification for this year WRC. Um, if anyone hasn't seen it, I will be posting that again. But either way, it was I had an original intention of linking this national tournament towards WRC qualification, but as time went on, we just ended up with the ARA Invitational, which is pretty fine. The system in 24 did its job and qualified our um our players into the WRC quite well. But within that original plan, it was originally suggested 4 to 5 tournaments. Just pick 4 to 5. 45 tournaments within somewhere in the country, and they all feed directly into the final qualification tournament. But as it turned out, the board at the time, we chose to include as many tournaments as possible. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think we got what, 12, like 12 tournaments plus the NAO. And on top of all that, the qualification point system was proposed and accepted, which I would give credit to Vichen and Steven from PML. And then during this whole time, I was also writing some subsequent documents to you know present and represent um, different national tournament ideas. But as it turns out, I will I will put them up just as scratch notes or ideas to source off of. Yeah, they've been different versions. I think version 4, I think is, or maybe version 4. Maybe I was working on version 5, but either way, they're up there somewhere. So we have some continental national level events right now, like in existence right now. Right now, they've been operating as 3-day events. The NAO, we've had that the year before WRC. Last year. My regrets for not attending that, but I just cannot go to every tournament in the country. If I wish I could. Either way, that tournament, the winner of the NAO, thanks to Brian Wen for winning the NAO, and with that, he won a direct spot to the WRC. And well, I've been hearing talk that maybe that might not be the case in the future, but we don't know. That's something that's something we will find out in the future. And then the ARA Invitational, that was the final tournament that was held 5 to 6 months ago in January, and that was used to fill in the 16 spots for the quota, as we all know. Once again, congratulations to everyone who made it to the WRC. I will tell you, you will all have some fun times and memories at the WRC. Look forward to it. And as it turns out, the Invitational end up on the year of the WRC. And so the national tournament, if it's accepted, this one would fall in the year after the WRC. So a nice slot. There's nothing really big happening in that gap next year. WRC will finish this year, then we'll have 2026, followed by 27, possibly the NAO there, and then the Invitational in 28, and then the WRC later that year. Either way, potentially we can actually do more than this, and that's if when this community grows even larger, and I bet, and I can see it, definitely will. It's all progress from here. So the North American Open, as the name implies, it is the North American Open. By the title alone, that kind of implies that maybe other non-U.S. organizations may host it, like Canada or Mexico. There are neighbors on North America. Imagine NAO at a Canadian city. That would be pretty cool. But that's whoever's willing to host it, to be honest. Either way, the NAO, it's an open tournament. There's no qualification system that's applied to get in there. The tournament's put out. We all sign up, and to anyone's interested, yeah, compete for that top spot at the NAO, right? Either way, though, it's not really used to determine a continental champion, although by de facto we actually could, if we think about it, because the tournament was a regular scramble tournament with brackets, and then there's a final table, and then the winner of that final table, boom, it's the champion of the NAO. And once again, yeah, that champion gets the direct entry, and it was voted to operate every 3 years. So that's really what was chosen by the assembly. So tentatively, that the next one will be in 2027, and it may not award a WC spot, but hopefully it will. Hopefully it will. That's not for us to decide. And then for the NAO, there was an originally suggested cycle to have the NAO, the ERMC, the European Championship, and then the WRC. Those 3 events in a 3-year cycle. But once again, because of the past NAO, the NAO last year ended up in the same year as the European Championship. So this idea kind of fell through a little bit. And then if the NAO ends up as a direct WC qualifier again, where the winner gets this WC spot, um, logically it should happen the year before the WRC. I don't my past recollection, I do not remember having a WRC qualifier spot um be given the year after the WRC, or in other words 2 years before the next one. So that's, who knows, that might change too. Anyways, that's all about the NAO. Then the ARA Invitational. The purpose of the purpose of this invitational was to be that final tournament to fill in the quota spots that WC gives us. And again, those who acquire those quota spots, yeah, they all get a chance to compete at the WC. And once again, we will see them perform next in about a month. So let's look forward to that. But either way, the ARA Invitational, it is subject to WC specifications. We remember that process. We had initial plan for the Invitational last year. However, because of the quota spots, which was a good problem by the way, they gave us 16, which kind of prompted us to redesign that. We went through all that. Beecham put up some surveys here and there, and then the assembly ends up choosing what the invitational format was. And the thing about the set play redesign, though, WC chose not to put its name/logo on it. Despite that, though, they accepted the results of the invitational, and yes, and they'll be welcoming our participating players there. And the winner of the ARA Invitational, if I remember, that was Kate. If I get that wrong, my apologies. I will have to look it up, but either way, the winner of the Invitational is not necessarily, we don't distinguish really first place from 16th place, because either way, they all made it in. They're going to WC, and that's about that. Either way, that is the Invitational. So the purpose of this national tournament, one, to determine our champion, who will be our U.S. winner. The intention is to have our own big stage event. We set it however we wish, and for it to count, we make it count. That's we define that, and with the ability to do that, that gives ARA a little more legitimacy, because without our own tournament, without our own big tournament, we're kind of like subject other organizations like WRC. If you notice, EMA has their own championship tournament, the European Mahjong Championship. So out of their goodwill, their winner does get a direct spot to the WRC as well. But despite this, ARA, yeah, we are more than willing to work with WRC for W-related events, such as World Reachie League, which is in about a month as well. So whatever WRC asks of us, whatever WRC requests for ARA to do, we will do it. We're cooperative. That's what we do. And all in all, we deserve our own championship tournament. I can't put it any more than that. But either way, that is our purpose. The value, the value for the national tournament. This is a big question. Is it even worth running it? Is it worth running it? Because after all, it's another tournament. It's another tournament. There's a travel cost applied to it, and then for determining a U.S. championship, we do have AirML, though it's online, and somehow we need a championship IRL. There's a special place in having a big championship tournament held um, in person, because like I said, it's a big stage, and there's one thing I hope for everyone to experience is to what is that big stage what is that big stage like? What does it feel like to play a final table, not just a final table, a big final table, one that everyone can see, and lo and behold, the winner is our champion. And so what are the implications for that national champion? What what will it mean to be a U.S. Ricci champion? Yeah, just think about that. You know, pretend it's you. Pretend it's someone and we just, I don't know. It's just something to applaud. And so that is what we hope to do here. Either way, we have maybe some criteria. Either way, um, it will require a qualification system, but it will be compatible with any qualification system that exists. Like, for example, WRC, right? We don't want like a separate system having players travel to that system to qualify for this championship while everyone's trying to qualify for WRC. No, no, there's a way to do both together. And for this national tournament, if it's simplified, then it won't interfere with anything that's already being planned for. And furthermore, there are multiple ways to qualify for something like this. So for the most part, right now, it needs to be reworked. But either way, the national tournament will be billed as a final tournament. It'll work like an invitational, and therefore, and as a championship, it would have its own championship format by which we could, by which it is something to be worked on. I've had ideas, but I don't know if they're good. So if there's one thing I will do, again, those documents that I wrote before, I will post them. And once again, this final tournament will conclude with a final championship table. Once again, the final table, it's something exciting to watch. I've watched like the Seattle final. I've watched the NAO final. I played in a couple finals myself. It's it's a very special table. Because in either that one hanchan or two hanchan, however how many hanchan, there's a championship on the line, and something to be that's something excited to be excited for. But either way, any detail work, we'll save that for later discussion because it will take time to develop. But the design principles to this national tournament, again, the qualification, it'll be compatible with any existing system. Frequency, how often do we want to do this? Annually? Possible to do that, but it might be too much. Otherwise, every 3 years. That's actually the most logical way to go about this. When it comes to integrity, the result of this event, as long as everyone is confident in it, then it could be, solid. Its legitimacy, it'll depend on its, it'll fall on credibility. Whether I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm saying with that one. Hopefully, it is legitimate. Like we say that the U.S. champion is the U.S. champion. That's what I'm looking at here. And furthermore, whether its relevance will be tied to how do we recognize this champion. And once again, the tournament will be an invitational. It'll have it. It'll have a championship format. Future growth, as our community grows from here, we either now or later we will need a single big tournament. Because who knows, in 10 to 20 years from now, it could be like this big prize money event. I know, hell, not gambling. Because let's consider tournaments in Japan, like the Saikyosen, right? The Saikyosen M tournament, M League itself. There are big events in Japan that have where the winner gets this big check, like on the order of, I don't know, some number million yen, but we're definitely not even close to that. But it is something in our future that might be possible. It will depend on our growth as a Ricci community. But for now we're just starting. And so when so to what we're looking to do here is to establish this championship for both our community's history and for future history. And either way, our hopefully a big tournament like this can lead to like sponsorship and support. But either way, and that activity will make feedback to our open tournaments. Because once again, for now, like our open tournaments, we run and host them, and we travel, we play together, get our trophies here and there, and do some free play. And some do have some cash prizes, but other than that, about it. Yeah, think about the cost of being at a tournament. But anyways, before any of this happens, yeah, we just gotta establish it. That's our initial thing to do here. And so the proposal. These are the initial motions. First, first and foremost, should this championship tournament exist? By which it will come with a working group and it'll have a design process and it'll be something to be worked on. And the due date for this championship slated October 1, 2025. So that's about June, July, August, September, 4 months. But if there's no plan, if there's no plan by the due date, we'll just cancel this event. And I do extend an open invitation at the 25 Chicago area Ricci tournament for any in-person discussion where yeah, the concept of ineligibility, let's just say those running this event might not be eligible to compete for it. But either way, the championship is looking to be slated for November 26th. And once again, the winner of this championship shall be, declared as the first national champion. And by the way, the name of this tournament, it's pending. There's no name for it just yet. For now, national tournament is is a fill-in, like a fill-in name. But all in all, everyone, thank you for listening. Again, assembly and board members. And going back again, these initial moments, this will be posed to the assembly for voting, and we will see if we do work on this national tournament project or not. Either way, I hope we do. For the sake of this community, I hope we do. Once again, Aldwin, aka Q, signing off. And again, everyone, thank you for listening. Keep playing the mahjong. Enjoy.